In this section, I'm going to be talking about the audio editor and some of the basic functionality you find therein. And the audio file editor is mainly used for destructive treatments and broad processes, and I'll explain that a little bit later as we go along. But before we can start to learn about the audio editor, let's go ahead and load an audio file. So I'm going to navigate to my file browser window here. I'm going to call up this tune right here, Night Driving in Paris version R04. And now let's talk about using the editor. And the first thing you're going to notice about it is that there are two waveforms. There's a waveform down here that's nice and big, and then above that there's another waveform that looks quite a bit smaller. And this is the waveform view where you see the big waveform, but up here you'll find the overview. The overview will always give you an overview of the file. But you'll also notice that each one has its own time rulers, and that's where it's showing where you currently are in time on either the overview or on the waveform. So the time rulers show you where you are in time, but there's also a dB scale or decibel scale, and that can be found on the extreme left-hand side of either the overview or the waveform view, and that allows you to reference the level of the audio information. Now, one of the things you're going to be doing the most often is playing back the information on the audio file or stopping the playback thereof. And that can easily be done with a transport panel down here at the bottom of the interface. However, if you rely on the transport panel, you're going to be moving your mouse down here an awful lot. So I'm going to show you some of the playback shortcuts because those are going to make your workflow much, much faster. So to start playback, the easiest way to do so is to press the space bar on your computer keyboard, and that will start the playback from the cursor position. So right now you can see that the cursor position is actually back here at the beginning in red, and then the current playback position is over here in green. So if you wanted to stop the playback, all you need to do is press the space bar. And now you'll notice that by default, the playback position moves the cursor to the stop position. But to start playback from a different position, you'll need to move the cursor. For example, if we wanted to start playback right here, then we're going to click on that waveform to move the cursor and then press the spacebar again. And another one of my favorite ways to start playback is to use the Alt or Option key in combination with clicking on the waveform. So if you hold down Alt or Option on your computer keyboard, you'll notice that your mouse pointer turns into a little speaker with a cursor next to it. And that allows you to start the playback from wherever you click on the waveform. And that also works in the overview. So if you wanted to start the playback here on the audio file, just click there on the overview. Or if you wanted to start playback here, or here, you can do so. Now, if you needed to quickly get to the very beginning or the very end of an audio file, there are buttons for that in the transport panel. However, you can also use the keyboard shortcuts of Home and End. So if you type Home on your computer keyboard, it moves the cursor back to the very beginning of the audio file. Conversely, if you hit the End key on your keyboard, it moves all the way to the end of the audio file. And also, when you're using Alt or Option and click, the placement of your mouse pointer is going to have a lot to do with what you're hearing as you're playing back. If you were to hold down Alt or Option and click from the center position of the left channel or the right position of the right channel, assuming that the audio file that you're editing is in stereo like this one is, then you're going to be hearing it in stereo. Actually, let me rezoom to right here, and I'll explain zooming here in just a moment. But let's hear this file in both mono and stereo. So I'm going to hold Alt or Option and then click right here at the midpoint of the left and right audio information. So right now I'm playing it back in stereo, If I wanted to only hear the left channel of this stereo file, then I'm going to click at the very topmost part to audition the left channel, but it will still be coming out of both speakers. It's just that it's going to mix it to mono. So if you're listening to this course on stereo studio monitors or on headphones, you'll be able to hear the difference between the mono selections and the stereo selections. So here's monitoring just the left channel and monitoring just the right channel. Whereas if I click anywhere in the center of that file, we are able to audition it in stereo.